When you're ready.
We're doing a presentation on steroids in baseball. My name's Owen, by the way.
I'm Murphy. I'm Charlie. I'm Ben.
And Charlie's doing his lens on this topic from a historical and political standpoint. Ben is doing it from an economic, Murphy's doing it from a scientific, and I'm looking at this through a cultural and social lens. Our thesis is that steroids affect the game of baseball and all of its different elements, and it'll have a lasting impact on the game of Major League Baseball. Okay, so the data collected here shows that each year since 2013, there's been lots and lots of cases of violations for performance-enhancing drugs within the game of Major League Baseball, or professional sports.
Steroids have been a very controversial subject when it comes to sports. Many people have different perspectives on this subject. Some say it is a good thing because the players are drawing more attention to the game and therefore the game becomes more interesting. Others say it is a form of cheating because players are using performance-enhancing drugs to better athletic abilities. That being said, there have been many players who have been caught using steroids in baseball. The two most well-known players are Barry Bonds and Mark Warner. Both of these players were breaking records and truly changing the way the game is played and also the way that it was regulated. So some may ask, what records were these two breaking? Barry Bonds broke the most career home runs, hitting 762. He also had the most home runs in a single season, hitting 73, and the most walks in a season of 232. And although McGuire's records were broken by Bonds, he currently held the record for the most home runs in a season, hitting 70, and the most home runs as a rookie, hitting 49. There have been other players who have been caught using steroids as well. Some of these include Sammy Sosa, Jason Giambi, Jose Canseco, Ivan Rodriguez, David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez, and most recently, Fernando Tatis Jr. The MLB has put in certain regulations concerning steroids in baseball, but one of them would be random drug testing. If the player is caught the first time using steroids, they will be suspended 50 games without pay. If they are caught a second time, they will be suspended 100 games without pay. And if they are caught a third time, they will be banned from the MLB for life. The United States has also made certain regulations concerning steroids. The Department of Justice states, it is illegal to use steroids without a valid prescription or to distribute them. Steroids are Schedule III substances under the Controlled Substances Act. Schedule III drugs, which have a legitimate medical function, may lead to moderate to low physical dependence or high psychological dependence. Now Murphy will present the scientific needs.
Science behind steroids. Tetrahydrogestrine, also known as THG, is an anabolic androgenic steroid used to build muscle and increase levels of enzymes the body can use to produce protein tissue. Drestamine is a synthetic steroid that is marketed widely around the world that is known to help treat female medical issues. Scientist Patrick Arnold realized that the base drug can convert the 17th carbon alkaline group to an alkylated anabolic androgenic steroid. And if that process is done in the presence of a hydrogen gas and catalyst, the product is tetrahydrogestrone. Androstenedione. Androstenedione is an endogenous weak androgen steroid and hormone that is an intermediate in the biosynthesis of estrone and testosterone from dehydroepiandrosterone. And it is a precursor of testosterone and other androgens, as well as estrogens like estrone, and possesses estrogenic activity. And primobolan, which is also known as methnolone, is a DHT-derived non-estrogenic steroid used for increasing lean muscle mass, preventing muscle wastage, and enhancing physical performance and strength. It suppresses natural testosterone in the body, but not as much as other steroids. Primobolan and testosterone are competitive inhibitors of the aromatase enzymes and compete for that target enzyme. The stimulation affects the central nervous system, which increases sexual drive and affects mood and energy. Tufts University's physicist Roger Tobin says, calculations show that by putting on 10% more muscle mass, a batter can swing about 5% faster, increasing the ball speed by 4% as it leaves the bat. Here's Ben to talk about the economic ones.
Moving into the early 90s, the MLB was in trouble. In 1991, they had a partial lockout that ended the season early. And in 1994, there was a total lockout with no 1994 season. And as you can see, the MLB was growing after the lockout by revenue going from 1.4 to 3.7 over the next 6 years. But the attendance was in a steady incline as it moved into the 2000s with an annual growth of 15. And that statistic is brought to us by the Motley Fool. And the average MLB team over the steroid era by the suspensions lost over $100 million, with the trade-off of 100 with a $52 million gain with a growth of 5%. The league didn't have ways of testing against these steroids, so the trade-off for the players is high due to the players being able to extend their career by around 6 years and being able to up their total gain by around $12 million total salary, which was a great incentive for the use. Once the MLB caught on to the cheating, they found new ways to punish by, as Charlie said, suspending players. But in the beginning, they weren't long suspensions; they were short suspensions with small fines. And now they've recently switched to longer suspensions with larger fines. And even with the updated punishments, the money that the players made around using steroids would be more than if they end up getting caught or found out, and it led to a larger boost in attendance due to players being able to touch records that were long thought untouchable. By some of the major culprits, with players such as Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire having the home run race of 1998, which brought record attendance to the league. And the American League in this period was able to boost their attendance to around 32,000, and the National League was able to build their attendance to around north of 39,000. Now taking a look at the effect of steroids, it hasn't quite been seen yet in the players, but as we can see from people who used steroids previously, it's led to long-term health effects, such as a decay in movement, heart problems, and liver and kidney failure, which are covered by the MLB's pension, but unfortunately have sidelined a lot of the players in a lot of their personal lives, and have also led to psychological issues which were known to have high-cost treatments. And as we can see, steroids in baseball were able to help bring a steadier incline back, but baseball wasn't declining as a whole. And now I'll move on to Owen.
In conclusion, we think that steroids have both a positive and a negative impact on the game of Major League Baseball. Some of the positives include record-breaking achievements among players, which brought in more viewers, more fans, and resultantly more money towards the MLB Association. Some negatives are that without the use of, with more regulations against steroids in baseball, you get less viewership, less engagement, and less money coming in to MLB. So our solution is that the MLB should start to minimize their current regulations against steroids and performance-enhancing drugs to attract a larger audience. The game of baseball would become more interesting, and the MLB would make a lot more money, resulting in better experience of game of Major League Baseball. That is it.
Okay, thanks. Got a couple of questions.
Before school prayer will begin in the chapel in 1 minute. All are welcome to join us for before school prayer beginning of the chapel in 1 minute.
Owen, if you had another team member, what perspectives could they have researched that would have made a useful contribution to the project?
I think perspectives meaning like lens.
Yeah.
I think that I think an artistic and philosophical perspective would have been interesting, considering that there isn't much, like, I mean, they could analyze, like, you know, the media and kind of the, like, kind of within articles, the effect of, you know, how, just like how the media's portraying, like, images that they're showing through their portrayal of it, and I think that'd be interesting to see how just the portrayal of the steroids era would be. I think that'd be interesting to get that perspective and maybe give us some insight.
Okay, thank you. Charlie, what is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
So our team's resolution made me think different because obviously our solution was that we should lighten the rules on steroids. And I think a lot of the time, me being one of them, people think that steroids are a bad thing for sports when really, like with Ben showing the economic lens, it brought in more revenue and more fans and all around made the game more interesting. And so it kind of changed my perspective, thinking that maybe steroids are actually a good solution for the game.
Okay, thank you. Murphy, give one specific way your thinking changed as a result of learning about Ben's findings.
Ben's findings about that individual impact on the economic, or on the team's value, the team's economic value in the MLB made me think that, or made me change my thinking that only the team's performance affects the value of the team and not like the value of just the players alone.
Okay, all right. Ben, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your solution.
Well, if we look at Murphs, who brought in the different steroids being used, they all had different effects and different variations of like how they would affect you and how they would affect like just the progression of their muscle mass, and it just brought like, as I looked at the long-term player health effects, his was able to bring more clarity to like why all that stuff was happening, and it really just was able to narrow down what I was looking at.
Okay, thank you. All right.